Good afternoon. Sven here from Common Sense Survival, and we're going to try this camera again today. I don't have any fancy camera equipment, so got to come at this at a little bit different approach. So anyway, as you can see here, I've got a variety of some steels here, just a couple different types of flint and chert, uh, and just want and some different tinders here that are found in nature, and some of these that you can also find in your local stores, hardware stores, for multiple uses. As you know, we'll start with the jute twine. Um, Most of us out there know that you pull a chunk of this off and kind of fuzz it out, and it makes a super nice bird nest. Similar to what I have here with this. This is some hemp rope, and that's what it looks like here. Just some natural hemp rope, and this makes a really nice bird's nest to put your ember in here once you do create that ember and blow that into a flame. So that works really well. And these are the jute twine and the hemp rope are two items that are readily available at your hardware store, I guess you call it, or an arts and crafts store with the hemp rope and that sort of thing. We have the horsehoof fungus here. This is also found out in nature, and this needs to be processed to a certain degree. And there's only parts of that which is just underneath. I guess they call that the cambium layer, which is usable. Birch bark is another tinder. Here we have some charred punk wood, which is not a rotten wood, but just that very light, airy wood that is on the verge of being rotten, but not quite rotten. And that can be charred, much like your char cloth, which is something that this is usually not found in out there in nature. This is your chaga, is another fungus found on birch trees that will take a spark. I've drank this also as a tea and for medicinal purposes. This is a super good find if you find it out there in nature, and I'm not sure if that one has to be charred to take a spark or not. I've got to double check on that one. But nevertheless, if you do come across some chaga, and this grows mostly on birch trees up in the northern part of the countries, super good stuff to have in your kit, not only for fire making, but as a medicinal herb, and it makes a wonderful tea. The other thing I wanted to talk about is steels in general. How to make a quick, easy steel. If you say, hey, I don't know any local blacksmiths or whatever. If you just have an old file, pull this one out here. You can just break off an old piece of file like you see here, and I've put a little bit of a tool edge on that, and I have made this one edge smooth, and that's going to be your striking surface there. When you're making something like this, you just want to make sure that when you do all this grinding and that sort of stuff on here, to keep it as cool as possible. Have a bucket of water nearby. Do a couple strokes with your grinder into the water. Bring it back a couple strokes with your grinder and back into the water. The whole key to making a multi-tool like this, because I still have a file here. I have a little pry tool on the end, and I have a flint and steel striker here. So the whole key to that is keeping it cool, and I try always to make these so that they'll fit in an Altoids tin, just so if I want to make a kit, it will fit in there. So that's one of the things. Now, the other thing that I'd like to talk about is if you are looking to work with a flint and steel type setup, is, and just me personally, here we have an one that I picked up at a rendezvous, and this oval here is just a very typical old style type flint and steel. Now, don't get me wrong, all of these steels that I have here in front of me work, and they work fairly well, but some better than others. And what makes one better than the other is, well, is the quality of the steel, of course, and the quality of the heat treat. But what also makes, in my opinion, this steel better than this steel is how broad that is. Okay, see this one here, very pretty thin. Now, if you're worried about weight, this is definitely going to be a lot lighter. This one here, much broader, a little bit on the heavier side. But I personally prefer the heavier steel over this lighter one here, or one of these ember lights, which they work, and they're decorative and they're kind of cool. They do work. But and there's your striking surface right there, and they're pretty cool. I wish Ember Light would make these just a little bit bigger and give them a little bit more weight, because when you have that steel in your hand and it has some weight to it like this, and it has this nice broad surface here, it just makes, maybe this whole edge is not real sharp. It's going to give you that much more of a chance to to get that spark off of there when you need it most. So see if I can get this other piece of flint here to, so it's a little bit sharper, and so that gives you a much broader area. And it's gonna, maybe that's a little spot, maybe there's only one little spot there that's sharp enough to shave that piece of steel off and ignite it. So you give yourself more of a chance of getting a good spark here than you would with this little skinny steel here. And that's just my opinion also. So just remember that. And the only other thing I can tell you is that I purchased this particular steel that said that it was handmade or hand forged. Be careful with what you buy online, because when I got this steel, and don't get me wrong, it works wonderful. The problem I had is that they said that it was a hand forged steel, and I have been a metal worker, welder fabricator for almost 40 years. And when I looked at this, I was like, well, okay, maybe they took it with a hammer and just dinged up the surface a little bit. But it was very obviously that it was most likely laser cut, plasma cut, or possibly a water jet cut. I can see the lines on the inside here of the cut, and I identify that quite easily as a machine cut piece, not a hand forged. So be careful when you're out there buying some stuff. Uh, Nevertheless, it's a nice looking piece, and it does work well. I was just wanting to, I was hoping to get a little bit more of a personal piece, and come to find out that that's not what I got. I like it, not quite what I thought I was buying. The other thing here, real quick, is this true flint here. Um, I bought these flints at online at a musket shop, and these are hand knapped in England. The guy gets all his flint is real. This is real flint from England. So if you're looking for something about this size, and they do work well again, check out your online with your musket shops or your black powder type shops, and they carry some really nice. And just buy the biggest one that they have. That's what I did. These are the biggest flints I could find online here a few years ago. I bought these, and they seem to work very well. So there it is. We got some real flint. We've got some chert. We got some fungus, birch bark, uh, big fat steels, little skinny steels, homemade steels. They all work. They all work with a little bit of practice and knowledge of how flint and steel itself works. It's just my preferred method to start fire in good conditions when everything's dry and I don't have anything too windy out there. Yeah, I love playing with flint and steel. Uh, oh yeah, don't forget, hey, we got some fat wood there too. Wonderful natural tinder. So keep that in mind. Sven here from Common Sense Survival, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for joining me.
Hello.